Okay. Grabbed you just in time. Another trendsetter with the shaved head for a very long time. Mark Turner, chairman of the OC, what is it called now? OC Sport.
OC Sport. Yeah.
OC Sport.
Yeah.
And, one of the commercial gurus in this game. And here as the team manager of Dongfeng.
No. Bruno Dubois is the team director, but I'm a role across the company. I'll dip into different events. This one's consuming quite a lot of my time alongside the Extreme Sailing Series, but this is it's quite a groundbreaking project. It needs a bit of extra energy and resource, so following most of this race in amongst going to the ESS venues and things, so this is an interesting project to take on. I'm loving being back on the team side as well, to be honest. The origin of OC Sport was running teams.
Was with Ellen, right?
With Ellen and Sam Davies for 3 years.
Yeah.
Nick Maloney, Seb Joss, and the team side is you have 100% of the passion of the team, whereas on the event side you kind of have 5% slice of each team, and a bunch of stakeholders that are never happy. So
you're also like the boss when it comes to extreme stuff. You're the boss, so you don't get that camaraderie and that family thing that you get in the team.
And the team gives you a lot of energy, and it's very definitive. You win or you lose. There's a start line, there's a finish line. As an event organizer, you create things that probably more long-term value.
Yeah,
it's a lot harder, to be honest, the event side. But you're also always surrounded by a lot of different stakeholders, and they're never all aligned or happy at the same time.
Whereas the team almost always has the same goal.
Well, the team can not work and not be like that, but when it is aligned, when everything's pointing in the right direction, same direction, it's very motivating. Everyone wants the same thing. So you still have all the complications, different sponsors with different aims, objectives, but it's just so much more aligned. And that day of the start and the day of the finish is very, very definitive. The event side is sort of a never-ending list of things you can do better, and there isn't really that ever kind of moment at the end of a project. It's a continuous.
Even at the end of the day, you get to 4 o'clock at a regatta that you're running, and everyone else is done sailing, and they're going out on the piss or going back to the room, and you're working till midnight.
Absolutely, and you're on to the next event.
Exactly.
In the case of Extreme Sailing Series, it's not like we get to the end of the season. When we get to the end of our event, if our final event in Sydney will be a few weeks away from the first event of the next season, and the year after that, actually already trying to work on as well in terms of venues. So it's a continual process. The flip side is the events, you create things that are durable in the long term, and that's the difference.
And this is what you've done better than anyone else. And like we've seen how to do it long, which Russell is the master of, which is let's have a great event and then forget about the world and hope it sticks, or do it like you do, grind it out for years and years, making very little money or no money until people develop that appetite. And it seems like that's what you've done.
Well, it helps to have a clean sheet of paper when we created the Extreme Sailing Series, with very few constraints other than the taboos of sailing, which we've been happy to break in lots of cases. So I guess the Cup, they have one big constraint, which is the deed, which kind of defines this mode of working. So I think it's really easy to pick up and criticise on consecutive owners of the Cup, and in reality, this big constraint, which quite quickly gets into a kind of legal status and everything else. And when you have that, your hands are quite tied. You maybe can't do all the things you want to do, or there's always someone trying to undo what you're doing, and also a lot of big personalities involved and everything else. The advantage we have with the Extreme Sailing Series is we had a really clear aim in the beginning, make a commercially viable for the teams and for the event, focused event, brand focused, city focused, with a relatively clean sheet of paper basically. And that formula today, whilst we've grown it, innovate, loads of different things each year we're trying to innovate on, actually the core formula we created in 2007 is absolutely there still and absolutely works. And that's, that hasn't had to change. I don't think the core thing will have to change, which is high level racing in a stadium, it's a different kind of format of sailing, but one that works in a stadium. And make sure that whilst you have a good sporting event, you do entertain the people that pay, which is the public, the VIPs of the sponsors, and the media, from actually sharing sailing in a form that people can get their heads around. So
let's talk about the series for a second, because I want to talk about Dongfeng in this race. But we've always loved the Extreme Sailing Series. It's a lot of fun, and it's clearly paying back. Paying well for the venues, and the sponsors are happy, and got great activation on the ground. But my criticism for a couple of years now has been that I just like the boats look ancient to me now. Obviously there's been such changes. Are we going to see something new in the Extreme Sailing Series? I keep hearing stuff bubbling up.
We very publicly 3 years ago said we will clearly at some point we'll change boats. We need to pick the right time and the right way. It's a good way to kill an event, like Tour de France La Voile, for example. Change boat at the wrong time in the wrong way.
Wrong boat.
Suddenly create for a circuit which has been very commercially focusing in terms of keeping the cost down, making sure the ratio of what people pay and what they get back from the sponsor works every single year, regardless of the scale of the event. It's always worked. When you do make a boat change, you throw in this sudden capital expenditure and the risk that you up everybody's operating costs as well, that you really mess it up. So you have to be very careful. And the interesting thing is that 3 years ago we did some preliminary work on our own designs, what would we change, and even today the list of things we change on the boat is really small.
Because
that's
the
the
kind of
problem.
sailing you do, you don't really have the room for foilers in these city centers that work so well for the series.
I mean, the list is very short of things we change, but there are things you do better.
Not just the look. What about just chopping the bows off and making it look like something sexy?
Yeah, we looked at that, and it's one of the things that we continue to look at. Each year we've been continuing evaluating. There's no sudden change. I mean, it's easy to kind of get on the foiling, shit, we're going to do something. Yeah, it's an in factor, which I can talk about in a second, but in reality is lots of things do come and go. If you jumped every time someone came up with a cool boat, we would have changed boats 3 times. We would have put wing masts. I mean, wings were the thing 4 years ago. So, there are a lot of things you have to be a little bit careful of. And ultimately, whilst sailors, want to sail different boats and everything else, the core value in Extreme Sailing Series is not the boat. It's not which boat it is. It's actually the format, the way it's run, the cost equation. That is actually the important thing. It's not actually which boat it is. It's called Extreme Sailing Series, not Extreme 40 Sailing Series. We stopped trying to sell the boats years ago. We don't try to build them. We're not a boat manufacturer. We don't care about selling those boats. We need a tool that does the job, and it actually still does a very good job. The stakeholders, the owner, the people inside the circuit, the sponsors inside the circuit, don't really want anything to change.
No, and they don't. To them, it doesn't matter. I mean, and the people that are
even the sailors. Okay, so the ones that have had to go raise the money themselves. There are 2 sets of sailors in the world, right? The ones that have had to go and find their money, and then the rest that get paid to go sailing. And everyone's important in there.
Or the ones that were born to the money. Well, it's 3.
Maybe we haven't got many of those. But the fact is those, and it's the same equation if you want to pick up about Volvo Ocean Race, everything else. At the end of the day, in sailing, there aren't that many people who are good sailors who are also able to go and find money. The fact is, the professional end of the sport, you have to be able to go and find the money.
Absolutely.
And in the Extreme Sailing Series, that equation is really important. That cost equation. It's very easy to be one of the other sailors and go, oh yeah, actually I want to go and sell this, or this is cool, or this is what I want to do. But if you haven't gone out and actually found the money and realised how hard that is, and if you add $500,000 cost to your annual budget, how many fewer companies you now have to go to, you have to remember that. It is the core thing. It's easy to forget it. It's easy to forget it in the sailing world and do everything else, but you've got to if you want something sustainable, you've got to have that equation right. But, that said, ultimately there are certain trends. Wingmast was one that came and gone. Foiling, I think it's very cool. I think it's here to stay in the sport. Cup or no cup, I think it's here to stay in the sport. That's very cool. Is it something we need to take into account? Probably in some kind of way. Does that mean a boat change? Probably yes, in our particular case. Is it an opportunity for us to make that boat change? Probably. And
it's just about timing and being careful.
Timing, finding the right way, finding the right boat, and ultimately the stadium side, we would not change. I mean, it's the core thing that works. Put the sailing in front of the people, short races, race 5 meters from the quay, from the dockside. All those things are really important. And you can't do it in a GC32. You can't do it in a AC45. Everyone talks about ACWS, the stadium format. I mean, the Cup wasn't a stadium format. You need a pair of binoculars. I mean, it's not the format we've made work. It's great that everything's got close to the shore, but you have to go very close to the shore and in a small stadium to make work what we've made work make it stack up. So it's great, all these new boats. It's great, all these new things. I mean, people love going, you've got competition, you're going to get annihilated. Like I said, it's not about the boat fundamentally. It's about having a boat that is the right tool for the job. It's not about everyone going, everyone, I mean, the little tiny sailing core going, that's it, everything else is rubbish.
They're not paying.
They're not paying, and ultimately, there are hundreds or thousands of classes of monohull out there. Yeah. It's about time there were hundreds of classes of multi-hull, out there for owners to choose different things, for people to get excited by. So we've got 2 or 3 new multi-hull classes, and everyone's like, shit, there's only place for 1. That's rubbish. I mean, the market, the Melgis type sailor or whatever, those guys are all starting to go, a lot of them, onto multi-hulls, and that is fantastic, because I think it's more exciting, visually more interesting for the sport, gets new people in, it's faster. That stuff is great. That doesn't mean monohulls are no good either. Sailing has all this room on the private owner side, it has the room for lots of classes. There's nothing wrong with it. When you get to the professional end, there's a certain amount of media space, and there's only space for a certain number of events. That's events, and then you've got boats. There can be hundreds of classes, and right now there aren't many multi-hull classes, and I think what the GC32 done is very, very nice. It works perfectly for some of those guys that might have been an RC44 or a Melgis or a thing and want to do something faster. It's a very nice place to be. M32 is doing a good job in other markets in the same way. There'll be other foilers, the SL33. It's all good. There's nothing negative about that. And we've talked with Laurent Len quite a lot since he created that class. We even had them in Nice. It's different things. When that might become a problem is if the people trying to sell those boats decide they want to create a commercially focused professional circuit. Takes on. Maybe we'll be competitors at some point. Today, whilst there's some crossover, reality is they want to sell boats. That means selling to private owners fundamentally to get any volume. It's not selling them to brands because there's a limit to the number of big brands that will do that. Actually, great. Build the system, build the market, get new people into the sport. Yeah, maybe attract some new sponsors in. That is very different to what we're doing on a global level with a decent media footprint now. I mean, we're bigger than I think any other.
I read the analysis.
Yeah, but I mean, it's solid, and it's delivering, and it isn't stale. When you go to an event, most of the people are seeing it for the first time. They're seeing sailing for the first time. You've got to remember that. We need to look after the sailing core fans without question, but actually, the bit that pays the bill in reality is that SAP can bring 30 VIPs who probably most of them have never been near a boat and absolutely love it. Or in Singapore, 30,000 people around the bay absolutely loving it, all with their cameras, all taking pictures, or all that stuff, and the media side that goes with it. So
it's a good segue. And we'll tell everyone, make sure you watch Sydney for the first time the Extremes are going to, well, not the first time a stream will be there, but the first time you're racing on Sydney Harbour.
Yeah.
Should be pretty fun in a couple of weeks, I think.
I think it's going to be a big end of year.
I think it's going to be a ridiculous turnout because you know what that city's like.
Yeah, but it's a very, these are very complicated events to do behind the scenes. I mean, and that's why also when people say, oh, there's a new boat coming along, therefore you're in trouble with your event. Well, sure, we need to take into account what's going on in the marketplace, but honestly, the complexity of running a global series in the way we do with the public side, a VIP side, a media side, it's not what people turn up with a new boat and suddenly do it. But we have to take that into account. The foiling thing is ideal world for us, and we've been very open. There's a tender document that you could read yourself and everything else there. If we could find the right size boat, dual mode, that we could perhaps be doing foiling on non-stadium days, which we have at pretty well every event, and in the mornings or whatever, come into a stadium, perhaps go into a non-foiling mode,
but in a different board and whatever.
That would work. GC32 actually does some of that. I think it's maybe a bit too small for us, but with the jury still out on that one in terms of scale, physical scale. And for sure, what we're not going to do is try and become a foiling full circuit.
The nice thing is that you're functioning well enough that you can sit back and watch how it develops. But let's get to Volvo, because I know you've got a meeting here coming up. But let's talk about the Dongfeng team a little bit. Obviously you've been working in China for a long time. In fact, you sort of opened it up to sailing in a lot of ways, and a lot of people have followed that. But another strange mix in a long line of strange French-Chinese mixes, and there's built up this weird little synergy now. We've got a decade of it, going back to La Défi and all this. Is this something that the Chinese public is taking hold of yet, or is it just keep grinding away little by little by little?
I think we are. We have to be. The most important thing is to be honest with where you are at, and we are like that.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's very small. The sailing community is small, but actually very engaged.
Yeah.
And they're very engaged in this project. I think for the first time, and that's an important stepping stone. And inside that small sailing community, you have some very influential big guys that are creating owners of some big companies and things on that side of it. The private owner side of sailing is developing in China, and I think the development in the last couple of years has been quite significant from virtually nothing. And I'm talking about mainland China, not the Hong Kong aspect of it.
Yeah.
We have a good starting
point. And not
the
expat aspect of it.
You have Chinese owners in China buying racing boats, racing against each other, and you have clubs racing against each other. You have the ecosystem is the beginnings of that ecosystem is there. The beginnings of some sponsorship stuff is there, but it's very, very early. I think on leg one we got the engagement of a good and support for the first time of that community. But we're talking about a very, very small number of people, and what we need to do is to break through and get a movement. You know, and a movement in China, you know, it means a few million people.
But that's the thing.
It's not 20,000 people. It's a few million people.
But it doesn't necessarily take much to you know. I think the social networking is so much more concentrated in China than it is anywhere else.
Everything is mobile, so we, you know, we don't have the resource I would like to have to go do that. Volvo Ocean Race, there's a big amount of support on the TV buy inside from the Volvo companies, and alongside Dongfeng in China and the Volvo Ocean Race effort. On the mobile and the tracking and the website, unfortunately, things aren't at the same level in Chinese as they are in English, and I think that's a shame. But you know, we have a race that is 9 months long, that actually we're incrementally doing better and better. We've taken on more Chinese people on the comms side. We're changing our approach, and I don't know if anyone knows the answer how to get this movement of non-sailing people following it. But we have to keep on trying different things. Take a few steps forward. You know, maybe we'll get, and I believe we can get there, but it's not that obvious. It's not that easy.
I have an idea. Keep doing what you did last leg, and I bet you by somewhere off the coast of Brazil, they're going to be following it.
Well, I hope so. I think the milestone, obviously, in this race is Sanya.
Yeah.
In fact, so I think if we don't manage to be leaving Sanya with you know, a big 6-figure or 7-figure number of followers in some way, some kind of fan, you know, engagement, I don't think we'll do it.
Right.
So that is a milestone for us. It's a milestone as well because we hope to sail into Sanya with 3 Chinese on board, which will be you know, another knockback ultimately on our performance potential. And that's one of the big challenges with Chinese culture, is that they need to win, but we need it to be a Chinese project. Yeah. It is a Chinese project. I mean, I saw some comment on Scuttlebutt or something about people upset that, you know, Dongfeng's not a Chinese project. Go to hell. Honestly, no one's ever done what we've done. I mean, we have people in comms department, logistics department, organisation, you know, every aspect of the project, teaching them. We're spending a lot of our money and time and resource just to give the skills for a future Chinese team. We have 6 Chinese sailors.
You've done this before.
You know, it's
you've done this before. You created, and not a lot of people know this, but I have like the little joke about it, the British Chicks press corps. You created, really, this, I mean, a cadre of dozens and dozens of people who administer, you know, the PR, the marketing, the commercial side of the sport, really, that you know, your partners, your employees, and really built up this whole system. Look around these rooms at any of these events, and half of them come out of the OC
There's quite a few of them around.
It's pretty amazing. So, I mean, is that the kind of thing you can do over and over again in new places?
Oh, I think you can. I mean, I think you've got to have faith in the power of the sport we have. You know, you can engage people, whether it's an ocean race or a stadium, you know, extreme setup. I've seen how the sport can take it to complete non-sailors, get them addicted, and get them loving it. It's not that it's simple to do, but the sport has something very unique, very unusual. The fact that people can go sailing, can jump on the boats. The fact the ocean side, when you get the right way to communicate, it's not easy to do, this balance, you know, between the sailing side, the techie side, and the rest. It's forever debated, right? But what I've seen is it can work. In China today, you know, even if our starting point today is our sponsors and the sailing community, and then the sponsors, none of them knew what a boat in any way, which way around the boat points. I mean, really, and a lot of them still don't. But I can tell you, there's a lot of people addicted to the tracker, you know, and following it every 3 hours. The bit perhaps we've got to learn to do better, and I would say the Volvo Ocean Race as well, is how do you connect that first contact, which is being a fan of a tracker, to the bit between that and you guys that know intimately everything about the boat.
I can tell you,
it's not really working yet. We're not managing to do it perfectly, and nor is the race. And
I've been talking
about
about this all week. Is, you know, kind of like educating the fan, and you and I are going to have a long talk about this down the road, because I got to go and you got to go. But whether I make it to Sanya or whether we hook up in Auckland, we're going to have another talk only about Volvo and what they're doing to build on some of the things that you brought to this world and how it's working. So no more time now, but thank you so much. Took it 20 minutes without a blink, huh?
Yeah.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Check them out, Extreme Sailing Series in Sydney.